everybody, and thank you so much for jumping in. Once again, if you find value in these videos, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see how I'm investing long term, links are in the description to go ahead and join my private group. For today's video, what we are going to be covering today is every single one of our Bitcoin cycles, going from the first cycle all the way back in 2011, 2012, looking at our second cycle in 2015, 2016, and then looking over here, even into our last bull market that we had, and then kind of factoring in what is playing out today, seeing Bitcoin touching 57K. Very encouraging signs for the bulls. What we're going to talk about today breaks down, the long-term prospect, the short-term prospect, what is actually going to be playing out in real time so that you guys can stay best on top of the markets. Now, we're also going to be sharing with you guys a few of my favorite altcoins, mapping out the price structure of amidst. We're seeing a breakout in the short term. GMX, more of the same. We're going to be wrapping up this one. We're also going to be jumping into Synapse Protocol and Stargate Finance, two of my favorite token bridges that are seeing breakouts as it stands right now. And then I've got one special altcoin that I want to share with you guys, so make sure you stay all the way to the end so you don't miss out on that final pick. Now, right off the bat, what I wanted to cover here was mainly talking a little bit about these cycles, how they're similar, how they're different, what has been the differences in each cycle that we've seen, and how does it kind of factor in with what we're seeing today in this current cycle. Now guys, the big thing I'm paying attention for is from the all-time high to where we're at today. Now, we're currently sitting at about 840 days inside of this consolidation, and we're obviously just making this big rounded bottom type formation. Seeing us at 840 days, already back close to those prior all-time highs, this is a quicker pace than anything in prior cycles. Coming all the way back down here, if we draw our Fibonacci and we actually take a look at what this is showing us, notice how we've already hit the 786. That's what we've just done right now. Both of these levels, we've now successfully retested the 786. Now, for us to be retesting the 786, this is happening 840 days from that all-time high. Now, this is a pretty interesting point because if we're comparing our prior cycles going into our last bull market, from our prior all-time high to the point of us actually going into a new all-time high was right over here at about 1,000, just under 1,100 days, right? So if we're coming and looking at Fibonacci once more and kind of comparing the two, that's going to be putting us right around that same 786 region. The 786 was right when we started to go into a new all-time high. So when we started to tag the 786, it was actually closer to about, 1,060 days. That's how long it took. So for us to be 840 days, that's almost a year quicker than what we saw in the last cycle. And we can kind of come back down in here and apply the same rule, looking at Fibonacci from the high down to the low. When we retested the 786 fib, would have been right over in here in about January of 2017, right at the beginning of that new year. So if we're looking at the time that it took from the all-time high towards us retesting it, 1,134 days. So what we've seen is a pretty lengthy period of time before we've ever seen Bitcoin retest that 786 region. It's always taken a decent amount of time to recreate that uptrend, build a new foundation of support before we see that breakout into a new all-time high. Now, we can even come into the first cycle and look at pretty much the same sort of similarities. Now, looking at all the way back down in here, from the high to the low to the point of us hitting the 786, we're once again, it was right at the same point of us going into a new all-time high. Not much has changed there. But this one was 620 days. So even in the first cycle, this one was the shortest one we ever saw. But we got to keep in mind that Bitcoin's market cap at the bottom was $2 million. So it makes sense why it didn't follow your typical sort of time frames in a cycle. There wasn't that much money in it. It didn't take very much money for Bitcoin's supply to really start sending it into a new all-time high. So as we're seeing this cycle, comparing the last two normal 4-year cycles that we've seen, where it's been almost exactly a 3-year uptrend, looking from the peak low to the point of us making the top of the cycle, 1,070, 1,090 days, right around that 1,100 day mark. You're looking at almost perfectly 3 years up in each one of our last two cycles. So seeing in this current cycle that we're already at the point of us, it was the same time frames in our last bull market. It was the same time frames there. So seeing us already at the point of hitting the 786 region, considering we're only 840 days from doing that, from the cycle top, it's happening at a quicker pace. And I think that that's something we at least be aware of, considering if this thing is to just start going into a new all-time high, maybe we don't really have any sort of normality with the prior 4-year cycles where, a prior 4-year cycle would see this thing kind of come back down, sell back down, kind of consolidate before we do the same thing into a new all-time high. Now that would be the scenario for a 4-year cycle. For us to have a quicker pace cycle, a left translation, that would show that we were actually front running, which is already what's happening. Just by taking a look at the time frames of the last couple cycles, we can see that we're at a much quicker pace than any of the last two of them. And the only one that we can really draw the same conclusion to is our very first cycle, going all the way back to like 2011, 2012. So I think that this is something to be, paying attention for, considering this is the first time that we've really ever done it this quick. Now, if we are to start going into a new all-time high here relatively soon, like this, I do think that we're going to end up leaving towards an early cycle top, probably sometime at the end of this year, looking at Bitcoin at 120 to 150K, before that ends up being kind of your blow off top before we start a multi-year bear market. That's what I would be anticipating if we were to see, Bitcoin just instantly start going into a new all-time high at a much quicker pace. Now, the other scenario is that Bitcoin ends up finding a little bit of resistance in here. Maybe that's 60K, pretty much right where we're at. And then we see a pullback back down to like the 40 to 37.5K region before we kind of consolidate. And then we start that new run into new all-time highs. That would follow a little bit more accordingly with your average cycles. That would be putting us within the same sort of time frames of those prior cycles. A new all-time high breakout happening 1,100 days, maybe even a little bit earlier, maybe closer to 1,000 days. It'd be closer towards like the summer, late summer. It'd be closer towards the late summer, early fall, even the end of this year before we got that new all-time high. That would be along the lines of a normal cycle. So I just want you guys to be aware of these scenarios, because if we do go into a new all-time high, I don't think that that's a sustainable sort of bull run. I think it would lead to an early cycle top. However, if we do see some type of correction in here relatively soon, I think that that puts us in the same trajectory as those normal cycles, and we'd be looking at a cycle top happening at the end of the year 2025. Now, let's talk about my favorite altcoin picks, the ones I think are going to be performing the best, and the ones you definitely want to be watching out for over the next couple months. First one on today's video is going to be Amidst DAO. Amidst is one of my absolute favorites because I really do believe in layer 2s. Layer 2s are going to be a huge narrative to watch for, and the reason is because ETH gas fees are just insane every single bull market. Layer 2s help scale Ethereum. They basically take the transactions, move them onto a separate chain, and then allow for scalability that way. So Arbitrum is a big one we've invested in. We got the airdrop. We were early to that. Optimism was another one that we were super early into. And now Amidst is the other one that I think is actually going to outperform all of those ones. And the reason why is because Amidst has the only truly decentralized sequencer out of all of the layer 2s. And, there might be some other ones that are, farther down the list. But when we're talking about the biggest ones in crypto, Amidst is the top one. Amidst is the main developer of Amidst is also Vitalik Buterin's mom. Vitalik Buterin is the creator of Ethereum. So I do firmly believe that with them having that direct backing with Ethereum, with them being the only truly decentralized layer 2, this is the one that Vitalik will end up picking over the other ones for adoption. So looking at this, we had great volume on the breakout. We broke out of our accumulation range, flipped it as new support inside of this move. We didn't even retest it all the way. That's how bullish it was. There's currently hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Amidst that are about to be injected back into some of these early projects. So if you're bullish on Amidst like I am, investing into some of the projects built on Amidst is one of the best things you can do, because this thing is absolutely about to break out in a big way. So when it comes time for talking about which layer 2s are the best, I don't think you can really go wrong with Amidst DAO, and that's why it's my biggest investment inside of that narrative. It's the one that this is the token that's needed the most. And I think that we're about to be running up to this resistance level at about $180 up here. From where we're at today, it's not like it's the craziest gain in the world. But you're looking at about another 60% from here. And depending on what Bitcoin does, guys, if Bitcoin was to just start going into a new all-time high, we follow, the left translation of a cycle, then all of the altcoins are going to do the same thing. So for me, I accumulated all these down in the bottom. I'm just holding all of mine. I'm not really going to be looking to sell at $180 because I think that if it just starts breaking out quicker, I'm going to look like an idiot for trying to call tops in the short term. So definitely be watching out for Amidst DAO. Next up is going to be GMX. GMX is the main DEX over on Arbitrum. It generates a significant amount of profit. The profit is actually, the trading fees, all of that volatility from people trading, longing, leverage trading in the market, whether it's buying or selling, all of the fees that are generated from people actually trading, those go back to the LPs. And I think that's the big way that these DEXs are going to work in the future. It's the people that provide the liquidity or incentivized through through, the exchange fees themselves. So looking at GMX, it's one of the most profitable DeFi protocols on the market. We're seeing 75% of all Ethereum that is leaving centralized exchanges like Coinbase or Binance and things like that. It's actually bridging over to Arbitrum. So this is the main DEX over there. I think it's going to instantly benefit when we see a lot more upside in the market. 500 million, it's a mid-cap crypto, still has a lot of upside, although it's a little bit more, capped versus some of the other ones that might be, sub 100 million or something. Regardless, we have a big inverse head and shoulder formation forming in here. I think it's going to break out of this. Once it breaks the neckline, we'll probably see something like this before we get into a new all-time high, kind of cement a breakout into price discovery, retest it as new support, and then from there I do think that that's where the real upside potential sets in. This is one of my favorite picks, one of my biggest investments. I think it's going to do very, very well long term. I've just continued to buy more, accumulate this the whole cycle, although it's not really done as much as I initially thought it would to begin this cycle. To me, this one is a no-brainer for long term, and when the real hype sets into the market, you're going to hear a lot about GMX, so watch out for it. Next up is going to be Synapse protocol. Synapse is a token bridge, one of my favorite bridges on the market. Now, to go from the Ethereum network over to the Binance Smart Chain, over to the Optimism chain, over to the Arbitrum chain, and all of that, you got to use a token bridge to do that. And this is a token bridge that kind of allows you to use multiple different chains. Now, looking at this, we broke out of all descending resistance, and we have currently, depending on how you draw it, you could draw it like this. There's a few different ways. Regardless, we've broken out of descending resistance. We're even seeing continuation from that point. A lot of new volume coming in here, which is a good sign. With us breaking out of our long-term downtrend, I do think that this is the point we're about to see a much bigger reversal on the way back up before we do something along the lines of this. We could see an earlier correction in here before going so high. Maybe we come up to this level and then we see something like this before that breakout. I don't know for sure. We're going to have to watch and see what Bitcoin gives us. But if Bitcoin gives us a lengthy period of reconsolidation like we kind of talked about at the beginning of this video like this, we're going to see the same thing play out in the altcoins. And so we'll have another opportunity. It's just in the short term, I do think that these are going to be breaking out for a leg higher. Now, with token bridges, we're going to see a lot of volume going cross-chain, and Synapse is one of the best options, so I don't really think you can go wrong with holding this one. It's one of my favorite picks. I've been holding this since all the way back down here at the low, so watch out for Synapse protocol. Next up is going to be Stargate Finance, another one of the token bridges that I think is going to do very well. When I look at this, I like the chart. Currently from where we're sitting today to the next resistance that I see, you're looking at about a 2.5x approximately, and it has just this giant rounded bottom type of accumulation. From the very peak low approximately to where we're at today, you're looking at like 600 days. And I do think that this thing is just going to eventually, well, not eventually, but we're pretty much right at that point, considering we just broke out of this high right here. This was the prior range high that we were consolidating below. We just broke out of it, and we're currently retesting it as new support. So this is the point where we are going to see continuation. And I think that once we get above this level, we're going to see a very quick impulse because this is built on Layer 0. Layer 0 is a project that's going to be coming out probably this year or at least next year. And it's going to be having a lot of backing from huge venture capitalists, a lot of big money in crypto, Coinbase, Binance, and all those guys. And it's going to be a really big project. A lot of the new projects that I'm personally looking at for pre-sales and things like that, they're all building on Layer 0. And it's going to be a narrative that takes a lot of people by surprise. But if, this one's already built on it, by buying some of the cryptos that are already building on it, it's, it just doesn't have a token yet. That's how you kind of get an advantage to be early to those. You could be farming it by using Stargate's bridge. You're actually going to be able to, farm for the Layer 0 airdrop that's going to be, to be announced at some point. So it is a good idea to actually use the token bridge. I've used it. It works great. I can at least vouch for both of the different bridges on the list. I've used all of them, and I just think that they're really solid picks. I like the price structure of this one a lot, and I think it's kind of at the last moment before we start that next major breakout. So watch out for Stargate Finance. Alrighty, the final coin on today's video is going to be Pulse Launch. This is the first launchpad on Pulse Chain, and I've personally made hundreds of thousands of dollars investing into launchpads in the last cycle. I was early to Ferrum Networks, I was early to a few other ones, and I ended up making some of the most profit in my portfolio from those. And I do think that with this one being the first one on Pulse Chain, it's going to end up seeing some of the most adoption out of all of the ones I have seen. Pulse Chain has a lot of money on chain, and then they're kind of looking for the next DeFi protocol to take off, and these guys already have all of the biggest influencers inside of that market. Moon King is probably the biggest influencer in Pulse Chain. He drives a lot of different demand towards cryptos, and he's been on board with Pulse Launch. Ian Heinisch is the same exact thing. He's a former UFC fighter, and he's been super on board with Pulse Launch as well. And then we've also seen, Mike the Investor. He has over 80,000 YouTube subscribers. He's came on board with supporting Pulse Launch, and there was even another guy with over 150,000 YouTube subscribers last night that made a video. So there's a lot of huge people that are supporting this at this point. It's gained way more traction in just a month than any project I've ever seen on Pulse Chain, and with them having a multi-million-dollar marketing agency that's going to be promoting all of this along with their further incubations down the line, I just think it's really a no-brainer long term. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, how the heck do you actually participate in this? The fair launch is going to be March 2nd, so I did want to talk a little bit about how you're going to be able to participate, what it's going to look like, and kind of the steps that you're going to need to take in order to actually participate on the network. So first things first, once you actually get to the website, what you're going to want to do is once this timer runs out, once we actually get to March 2nd, and then the time counts down, you're going to want to refresh the page. Once you refresh it, you're going to see it actually changes, and there's going to be a launch button over here, basically a little red button. And then once you click that, it's going to redirect you to another landing page. From that landing page, it's going to go over all of the different tokens that are going to be available. There's going to be 3 different chains. There's going to be Ethereum, and then there's going to be a few different tokens on the Ethereum network that are accepted. There's going to be the Pulse Chain network, and then a various amount of cryptos from the Pulse Chain network that are accepted. And then there's going to be Arbitrum, and then a various number of Arbitrum altcoins that are accepted. The reason why they're doing that is basically give everybody the biggest opportunity to get in, no matter what chain you are. There's a lot of people that haven't ever used Pulse Chain. They've never actually bridged before. So this is basically going to help all of those average people. Now, there's not going to be any Web3 contracts. There's not going to be anything like that. The only thing that you're going to have to do is literally just deposit whichever crypto and however much of it you want to accumulate with launch tokens. You just deposit it to their address. When you generally see a pre-sale, well, most of you guys haven't probably been a part of any pre-sales. Now, when you're looking at how a normal pre-sale works, when they're talking to venture capitalists and they're reaching out to their influencers, they basically just provide you with a Google document, and then the Google document goes over the different cryptos they accept. It goes over the details of the crypto that they're actually talking about and want you to promote. And then at the very bottom, it just has an address that you send to. This is the easiest way to prevent any sort of people scamming, any sort of people trying to hack the contract or the code, anybody trying to do botting on the launch. This is going to cut out any of that type of stuff, so it's not going to be possible for people to send their bots, snipe the entire launch, steal large amounts of the supply all in one go. Now, what you are going to have is a software wallet. So if you come up here and actually come up and look at a MetaMask wallet, this is going to be the average route most people take. The other wallet you could use is a Rabby wallet. That's the other really good one that works for Pulse Chain. But all you're really going to have if you are going to send through the Ethereum network, you have to have the Ethereum mainnet added. If you want to send through the Arbitrum network, you have to just make sure the Arbitrum network is added. And then if you wanted to actually use the Pulse Chain network, you would just have to actually signify for the Pulse Chain network itself. So when we're looking at all of this, all you're going to have is a little bit of money deposited inside of a wallet. Now, once you refresh this page and you actually click the button, it directs you to the other landing page. And then all you're going to end up doing is coming over here and clicking send, and then actually pasting the address right here. So it's super simple, super straightforward. This is the exact same way venture capitalists do. This cuts out anybody from being able to snipe the launch with bots and be able to basically manipulate the market. This allows the most average people to be able to join. It doesn't exclude anybody. There's no prior sales, there's no pre-sales, there's no VCs, there's no seed funding or anything like that. It's literally the most fair launch that can exist because it doesn't exclude anybody from being able to participate in the same way normal launches do. So once again, guys, make sure that you're paying attention. Follow the links inside of the description. Only the links on the website. The only way that you're going to be able to follow anything to do with this launch is actually going to be from the website. Don't watch any addresses that are posted on Twitter or anything like that. They're only going to be available on the website. So I'm going to link everything inside of the description for you guys to follow. Once again, if you found value in this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these updates. If you guys want to join the Discord server, see how I'm actually investing my money long term over the course of these cycles, pre-sales, anything like that coming up, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. Once again, guys, thank you so much for the support. And with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.